I'm sitting in a lobby that looks like it costs more per square foot than my entire apartment, and the woman behind the reception desk just said, "Declan, we'll see you now." My hands are shaking. I stand up, smooth down my blazer that I borrowed from my roommate Tessa, and follow her down a hallway with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My shoes, also borrowed, are half a size too small and clicking way too loudly on the polished concrete floor. Every step sounds like an announcement. Fraud, fraud, fraud. Here's the thing. I applied to this job at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday after the worst day of my entire life. My boss had just told me our department was being restructured, which is corporate speak for, "You're all getting laid off in 3 weeks." I'd come home, eaten an entire pint of ice cream, and then made the absolutely unhinged decision to apply to every single job posting I could find on LinkedIn. I wasn't being strategic. I wasn't being careful. I was being chaotic and desperate and maybe a little bit wine drunk. This particular job posting was for a creative strategist at Morrison & Associates, which is literally the most prestigious marketing firm in the city. The kind of place where people have master's degrees and portfolios and use words like synergy, unironically. The job description mentioned brand development, campaign strategy, market research, client relations, basically a bunch of stuff I have zero experience with, but the apply button was right there, and I clicked it. I wrote a cover letter that was 90% confidence and 10% complete fiction, uploaded a resume I enhanced with creative interpretations of my actual work experience, and hit submit before I could talk myself out of it. Then I forgot about it entirely, until 6 days ago when I got an email with the subject line, "Interview Creative Strategist Position." I literally screamed. Tessa came running into my room thinking someone had died, and I just shoved my phone at her with this email open, and she read it and then looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "You applied to Morrison & Associates?" she said. I was having a moment. "Do you even know what a creative strategist does?" Absolutely not. And now I'm here, walking into a conference room that's all glass walls and minimalist furniture, and there's a man standing by the window. He turns around. He's maybe early 30s, wearing a charcoal button-down with the sleeves rolled up, dark hair that's slightly messy in a way that looks intentional, and these incredibly sharp blue eyes that seem to see directly through my soul. "Hi," he says, and his voice is warm but professional. "I'm Declan. You must be—" He glances at his tablet. "Hour 2 o'clock. I shake his hand, and my palm is definitely sweaty. "Yes, hi, hello, that's me," I say, and wow, great start, very professional. "Have a seat." He gestures to the chair across from him. I sit down and immediately regret every single choice I've made in the past week. The chair is one of those modern mesh ones that's supposed to be ergonomic, but mostly just makes you hyper-aware of your posture. I try to sit up straight. Then I worry I look too stiff. I adjust. Now I'm slouching. I adjust again. Declan is watching me with this subtle smile. "Nervous?" he asks. "What? No, I mean, yes, obviously. Is it that obvious?" He laughs, and it's this genuine, warm sound that makes me relax for exactly half a second before I remember that I'm a complete fraud. "Interviews are stressful," he says, setting his tablet down. "I get it. Let's just have a conversation, okay? No pressure." "No pressure," he says, as if I didn't lie my way into this room. "So," he leans back in his chair, "tell me about yourself." This is it. The moment where I either commit to the bit or stand up and run out of the building. I commit. "Well," I say, and my voice sounds way more confident than I feel. "I've spent the last 3 years working in customer relations, but I've always been really passionate about the strategic side of marketing. I love the challenge of understanding what makes people connect with a brand, you know? Like, why do we choose one product over another? What's the emotional hook?" This is technically true. I do think about this stuff. Usually when I'm scrolling Instagram at midnight and wondering why I'm suddenly convinced I need a $40 face serum. Declan nods, looking genuinely interested. "What drew you to Morrison & Associates specifically?" "Oh God. Your campaign for the Mountainside Development Project," I say, pulling this directly from the company website I frantically studied last night. The way you positioned it wasn't just about luxury apartments. It was about community, about belonging. That "come home" tagline? Brilliant. It transformed a real estate pitch into an emotional narrative. His eyebrows raise slightly. "You followed that campaign?" "It was hard to miss," I say, which is true because it was literally on billboards everywhere, though I never actually thought about it until 10 hours ago. "What did you think of the execution?" My mind goes completely blank. I have no idea what the execution was. I start buying time. I thought the multimedia approach was really smart. You weren't just targeting one demographic. You were creating this layered narrative that met people where they were. Social media for younger buyers, traditional media for the established market. But all of it felt cohesive. I'm fully making this up, but I'm making it up with conviction. Declan tilts his head slightly. "Interesting take. What would you have done differently?" "This is a trap." "This is definitely a trap, honestly," I say, and I decide to just be honest-ish. "I think you could have leaned even harder into the community aspect. Maybe spotlighted actual residents, their stories, what home means to them personally. User-generated content, real testimonials, not just the polished marketing version." He's quiet for a second, and my heart is in my throat. Then he smiles. "We actually pitched that in the initial proposal. Client turned it down. Thought it felt too risky, too uncontrolled." "That's frustrating," I say, and I mean it. "It is," he agrees, "but that's the job sometimes. Balancing vision with what the client actually wants." He picks up his tablet again. "Let's talk about your experience. I see you've worked in customer relations. Tell me about a time you had to manage a difficult client situation." Okay, this I can actually answer. "Last year, we had a client who was convinced our product wasn't working, even though all the data showed it was functioning perfectly. She was furious, threatening to leave terrible reviews, the whole thing. How did you handle it?" "I listened," I say. Like, really listened. Turns out she wasn't wrong. The product was working, but the user interface was confusing for her specifically. quickly. She wasn't tech savvy and she felt stupid, which made her defensive. So instead of telling her she was using it wrong, I walked her through it step by step, validated her frustration, and then sent her custom instructions with screenshots. She ended up becoming one of our biggest advocates. Declan is nodding, taking notes on his tablet. That's exactly the kind of client relations skill we need. Our creative strategists work directly with clients. You need to be able to read people, to understand what they're actually asking for versus what they're saying. I feel a weird flutter of hope, which is immediately crushed by the reminder that I have no idea what a creative strategist actually does day to day. So, he continues, walk me through your creative process. When you're developing a campaign strategy, where do you start? Oh no. I have never developed a campaign strategy in my entire life. I start with questions, I say, because it's the only thing I can think of. Who is this for? What do they need? What do they fear? What do they want? You can't create an effective strategy without understanding the audience on a human level. This sounds good. This sounds like something a real creative strategist would say. Give me an example, Declan says. A specific campaign you worked on. My mouth goes dry. I don't have a specific campaign. I've never worked on a campaign. Think. We were launching a new service tier, I say slowly, building the story as I go, and the initial strategy was all about features and benefits. Very logical, very practical. But when we actually talked to customers, we realized they didn't care about the features. They cared about time. They were overwhelmed, burned out, desperate for anything that would give them even 30 minutes back in their day. I'm literally describing myself and everyone I know. So we pivoted, I continue, gaining momentum. The campaign became about reclaiming time, about what you could do with those extra moments. What if you had time? That was the tagline. We showed people reading bedtime stories to their kids, taking a bath, calling their mom, just breathing. It wasn't about the product anymore. It was about the life the product could give you. Declan is staring at me. I can't tell if this is good staring or bad staring. That's a strong concept, he says finally. What were the results? Results, right. Numbers I don't have. We saw a 40% increase in conversions in the first quarter, I say, picking a number that sounds impressive but not unbelievable. But more importantly, the customer feedback shifted. People weren't talking about features anymore. They were talking about how the service made them feel. He's writing something down. I'm sweating through my borrowed blazer. Let's talk about analytics, he says. How do you measure campaign success beyond basic conversion rates? Analytics. The word alone makes me want to dive through the window. I think metrics are important, I say carefully, but they don't tell the whole story. I look at engagement patterns, sentiment analysis, customer retention rates. Are people just buying once, or are they coming back? Are they talking about the brand organically? Are they sharing content? Sometimes the most valuable impact isn't immediate. It's the long-term brand loyalty you build. This is stuff I've heard people say in meetings. I have no idea if it's right. Declan nods. True. But at the end of the day, clients want numbers. How do you communicate soft metrics like brand sentiment to someone who only cares about ROI? I take a breath. You translate it, I say. You show them how positive sentiment correlates with customer lifetime value. You demonstrate how engagement predicts future conversions. You make the soft metrics hard by connecting them to outcomes they understand. He's watching me with this unreadable expression. You're good at this, he says. My heart skips. At what? Thinking on your feet, reframing, finding the human angle. He leans forward slightly. Let me ask you something. This role requires experience with brand positioning frameworks, market segmentation models, competitive analysis matrices. Walk me through how you'd approach a competitive analysis for a new client in the wellness industry. I have no idea what half of those words mean in this context. My brain is screaming. I'd start by understanding the competitive landscape, I say, which is delightfully vague. Who are the major players? What are they doing well? Where are they failing? But more importantly, where are the gaps? What is no one talking about? Specific example, Declan says, and there's this glint in his eye like he's testing me. Okay, I say, buying time by taking a sip of the water that appeared at some point. Wellness industry. Everyone's talking about self-care, meditation, clean eating, optimization. It's all very aspirational, very Instagram perfect. And nobody's talking about the fact that most people can't afford that lifestyle. That wellness has become this luxury good that makes people feel worse about themselves. So if I'm positioning a new wellness brand, I'm finding the gap. Accessible wellness. Real wellness. You don't have to be perfect to be healthy or something like that. I'm targeting the people who are exhausted by the $200 yoga retreats and the $50 smoothies. Declan is really looking at me now. That's actually, he pauses. That's really insightful. I'm not sure if I'm nailing this or digging my own grave. We had a client last month, he continues, who wanted to break into the wellness market, and our team spent 2 weeks developing this premium positioning strategy. The client hated it, said it didn't feel authentic to their brand values. What were their brand values? Accessibility, inclusivity, realness? Then why would you pitch them premium? The question comes out before I can stop it, and I immediately regret my tone. But Declan laughs. That's exactly what I said, he tells me. Sometimes the team gets caught up in what they think a wellness brand should be instead of listening to what the client actually needs. There's this moment of connection, and I feel it, this weird spark of understanding. Then reality crashes back. I am lying to this man. Let's talk about software, Declan says, looking back at his tablet. What analytics platforms are you comfortable with? My stomach drops. I've worked with Google Analytics, I say, which is technically true if worked with, means looked at the dashboard once during a training I didn't pay attention to. What about visualization tools, Tableau, Power BI? I have heard these words before, but couldn't tell you what they do if my life depended on it. I've used Tableau, I lie and immediately hate myself. Great. What's your preferred method for presenting data insights to non-technical stakeholders? I'm in free fall. I try to tell a story, I say, because that's what people always say about data, right? Numbers don't mean anything without context. I focus on what the data reveals about human behavior, about patterns, about opportunities. Show me, Declan says. What? Let's say I'm a client. I'm a non-technical CEO, and you need to present campaign results. Walk me through it. Oh God. Oh God, oh God, oh God. I stand up, which is insane, but I'm committed now. Okay, I say, pretending there's a presentation screen behind me. You launched this campaign 3 weeks ago. You're nervous. You invested a lot of money, and you're not sure if it's working. Declan is watching me with this amused expression. I'm not going to show you a bunch of numbers. I continue, fully improvising. I'm going to tell you a story. 3 weeks ago, your brand was having this conversation. I gesture like I'm pointing to an imaginary graph. You were talking, but nobody was really listening. Then we launched. And look, suddenly people are responding. They're not just clicking, they're sharing, they're commenting, they're tagging their friends. I'm making huge dramatic hand gestures, and I must look absolutely unhinged. This spike here, I point to invisible data. That's when someone posted your content organically, and it went viral. That's not something we did. That's something your audience did because they connected with the message. That's the difference between a campaign and a movement. I sit back down, my heart pounding. Declan is staring at me. He starts. I brace myself. That was actually really effective, he finishes. You made me care about fake data. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The best strategists aren't the ones who know every tool, Declan says. They're the ones who can make complex things feel human. You can learn software. You can't always learn how to connect with people. This should make me feel better. Instead, I feel worse. Because he's being nice to me, and I'm lying to him. Tell me about a time you failed, Declan says, shifting gears. Finally, a question I can answer honestly. 2 months ago, I say, I promised a client we could deliver something by a specific deadline. I was so confident, so sure we could make it work. And then everything went wrong. Our system crashed. We lost data. It was a disaster. I had to call the client and tell them we couldn't deliver. How did they react? They were furious. I don't blame them. I'd be furious too. But I took full responsibility. I didn't make excuses, didn't blame the system or my team. I apologized, offered solutions, and worked overtime to make it right. We delivered 3 days late, and I comped them for the delay. Did they stay with you? They did. And they actually told me later that the way I handled the failure made them trust us more than if everything had gone perfectly. Declan nods slowly. Integrity matters, especially in this industry. Clients need to know you'll be honest with them, even when it's hard. The irony is not lost on me. I am the opposite of honest right now. Let me ask you something, Declan says, and his tone shifts slightly. Why do you want this job? It's such a simple question, but it hits me like a truck. Why do I want this job? The truth is, I don't even know what this job is. I applied at 2 a.m. in a moment of panic and desperation. But sitting here talking to Declan, improvising my way through this conversation, there's something here, something real. I want to create things that matter, I say, and my voice comes out quieter than I intend. I'm tired of just existing in a job that doesn't challenge me. I want to do work that makes people feel something, that changes how they see themselves or the world. I want to be part of something bigger. This is real. This is maybe the most honest thing I've said in this entire interview. Declan is quiet for a moment. Can I be honest with you? He asks. My pulse spikes. This is it. He knows. He figured it out. Of course, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. I've done 8 interviews this week, Declan says. Everyone has the perfect resume, the perfect portfolio, the perfect answers, but nobody has this. He gestures between us. This energy, this authenticity. I want to die. He's talking about authenticity, and I'm the least authentic person in this room. Most people come in here trying to be what they think I want, he continues. You came in here and you're just yourself. I am absolutely not myself. I am a panicking, improvising mess who's been lying for 45 minutes straight. I have to ask you some technical questions, Declan says, pulling up something on his tablet. The team needs to know you can handle the strategic frameworks we use. So, talk to me about the SOSTAC model. The what? The SOSTAC model. I have never heard of this in my entire life. A SOSTAC, I repeat, buying time, situation, objectives, strategy, tactics, action, control, Declan clarifies. Walk me through how you'd apply it to a new client. I am going to pass out. Right, SOSTAC, I say, as if I definitely knew that and was just making sure we were talking about the same thing. It's a solid framework. I have no idea if this is a solid framework. Start with situation, I continue, fully winging it. Where is the client right now? What's their current market position, their challenges, their opportunities? You can't build a strategy without understanding the present reality. This seems logical. Then objectives, I go on. What does success look like? And I don't just mean revenue targets, I mean real, specific, measurable goals that align with their broader business vision. Declan is nodding. I might be accidentally correct. Strategy is the how, I say, gaining a dangerous amount of confidence. This is where you determine the overall approach. Are we focused on brand awareness, customer retention, market expansion? Tactics are the specific actions that execute the strategy, and then action is the implementation. Who does what, when, how, and control is the measurement. How do we know if it's working, and how do we adjust? I finish and hold my breath. That's exactly right, Declan says. I want to scream. I just successfully explained a framework I learned about 30 seconds ago. What about Porter's 5 forces, he asks. I don't know what that is either. In terms of competitive analysis, I ask, gambling. Yes. It's about understanding the competitive pressures, I say slowly. Threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, threat of substitutes, and competitive rivalry. You're analyzing the forces that shape the industry landscape. I'm literally making this up based on the name. Declan looks impressed. Have you used that framework in practice? I've used elements of it, I hedge. I think frameworks are helpful as guides, but you have to adapt them to the specific situation. Sometimes the traditional business school approach doesn't capture the nuance of what's actually happening in the market. This is me covering for the fact that I have no idea what I'm talking about. I like that perspective, Declan says. Too many strategists treat frameworks like gospel instead of tools. We talk for another 20 minutes about things I'm desperately Googling in my head as he asks them. Brand architecture, customer journey mapping, positioning matrices. I'm pulling terms I've heard in meetings, concepts I've skimmed in articles, ideas I'm inventing on the spot and praying sound legitimate. And somehow, impossibly, I'm keeping up. Declan asks me about a campaign failure, and I tell him about the time I completely misread a customer segment and created messaging that landed flat. I describe how I pivoted, how I learned, how I used that failure to develop better research processes. This actually happened, sort of. If you replace campaign with email newsletter and customer segment with my mom's book club, but the principle is the same, right? Let me show you something, Declan says, standing up. He walks to the window, and I follow. From here, you can see the entire downtown skyline, glass and steel reflecting the afternoon sun. This firm was founded 20 years ago by my mentor, Declan says quietly. Morrison. He passed away last year. Oh God, he's sharing something personal, and I'm a fraud. I'm sorry, I say, and I mean it. He used to say that the best strategists are the ones who can hold two truths at once: data and intuition, logic and emotion, what is and what could be. Most people lean one way or the other. The rare ones can balance both. He turns to look at me. I think you might be one of the rare ones. My throat is tight. I've been interviewing for this position for 3 weeks, Declan continues. I've talked to people with MBAs from Stanford, people who've worked at Google and Apple, people with award-winning portfolios, and you know what? They're all qualified. They're all impressive, but they're all trying to prove they belong here. He pauses. You're not trying to prove anything, you're just present, engaged, real. I can't do this. I can't keep lying to this man who's being so genuine, so kind, so open with me. Declan, I start, and my voice shakes. Yes? This is it. This is where I confess. This is where I tell him that I have no idea what I'm doing, that I applied to this job on a whim, that everything I've said today has been some combination of improvisation, desperation, and Wikipedia. I look at him, really look at him, and he's watching me with this expression of openness and curiosity and something that might be respect, and I lose my nerve. I just want to say thank you, I say instead, and I hate myself for being so welcoming. These interviews can be really intimidating, and you made this feel like a conversation instead of an interrogation. Of course, he says, smiling. That's the whole point. I want to know who you are, not just what's on your resume. We walk back to the table. I have one more question, Declan says, sitting down, and I want you to be completely honest. My heart stops. If we offered you this position, he continues, what would worry you most about taking it? I stare at him. This is it. This is the perfect opening to confess. Tell him, a voice in my head screams. Tell him the truth. I'd worry about letting you down, I say quietly, and this is the most honest thing I've said all day. You're putting faith in me, and I'd worry about not living up to that, about getting in over my head, about not being enough. Why would you think you're not enough? Because I'm not qualified. Because I lied to get here. Because I'm a fraud. Because this is a big leap, I say, and big leaps are scary. Declan nods slowly. They are. But you know what I've learned? The people who worry about being good enough are usually the ones who end up exceeding expectations. It's the overconfident ones you have to watch out for. He's being so nice. I'm the worst person alive. I need to be honest with you about something, I say, and my hands are shaking. Okay, Declan says, and his expression shifts to something more serious. This is it. I'm really doing this. I start, and then stop, take a breath. I applied to this job at 2 a.m. after having the worst day of my life. I just found out I was getting laid off, and I was panicking, and I wasn't thinking straight, and I just clicked the apply button without really considering whether I was actually qualified. Declan is very still. And the truth is, I continue, and my voice is getting tight, I'm not qualified, at least not on paper. I don't have an MBA. I've never worked at a prestigious firm. I've never developed a major campaign strategy. Everything I told you today, the frameworks, the approaches, the terminology, half of it I was figuring out as I said it. There's a long silence. I can't look at him. I shouldn't have come here, I say quietly. I should have withdrawn when I got the interview email, but I was curious, and I thought maybe I could just see what it was like. And then I got here, and you were so kind, and we started talking, and I just kept going. I kept improvising, and I know that's not okay. I know I wasted your time. My eyes are burning. I'm sorry, I finish. I'm really sorry. Another silence. I finally force myself to look up at Declan. He's watching me with this unreadable expression. Can I tell you something? He says. Okay, I whisper. I knew. I blink. What? I knew you weren't traditionally qualified, Declan says. The moment I looked at your resume, I knew. My brain short circuits. You knew? Your resume was creative, he says, and there's this hint of amusement in his voice. Very creative. Your job descriptions were written like marketing copy, heavy on impact, light on specifics. Your cover letter was passionate but vague. And when I looked at your actual work history, it was pretty clear you'd never worked in strategic marketing. Then why did you interview me? Because your cover letter made me feel something, Declan says simply. Everyone else sent me these polished, professional, completely soulless documents. Yours was raw. It was human. You wrote about wanting to create things that matter, about being tired of work that feels meaningless, about wanting to make a real impact. And I thought, this person gets it. I'm speechless. So I decided to bring you in, he continues, not because I thought you were qualified, but because I wanted to see who you were, how you think, how you handle pressure, whether you're the kind of person who could learn what you don't know. I lied to you, I say. The whole interview. I made things up. Did you? Declan asks. Because from where I'm sitting, you demonstrated strategic thinking, creative problem solving, the ability to read a room and adapt in real time, emotional intelligence, and genuine passion for the work. Those are the things I actually care about. But the frameworks can be taught. I can teach you SoStack and Porter's 5 Forces in an afternoon. I can train you on analytics platforms and presentation software. What I can't teach is what you already have. The ability to understand people, to find the human story, to think on your feet, and to be honest even when it's hard. My hands are covering my face. You confessed, Declan says gently. You could have kept going. You could have finished the interview, and I probably would have offered you the job anyway, and you could have figured it out as you went, but you didn't. You told me the truth, even though you thought it meant losing everything. I couldn't keep lying to you, I say. It felt wrong. Exactly, he says. That's integrity. That's the quality we need most in this industry, and it's the hardest one to find. I lower my hands and look at him. I don't understand, I say. Are you offering me the job? I'm offering you the job, Declan confirms. But I'm not qualified. Not yet, he agrees. But you will be. We have a training program. 3 months of intensive learning, mentorship, hands-on projects with supervision. You'll be paired with a senior strategist who will teach you everything you need to know. And yes, it's going to be hard. You're going to feel overwhelmed and out of your depth, probably every day for the first few weeks. He leans forward. But I've been doing this for 10 years and I can tell within 5 minutes of meeting someone whether they have what it takes. And you do. You have the instincts, the creativity, the empathy, the resilience. Everything else is just skills, and skills can be learned. I'm crying now, actually crying, and I'm mortified but also can't stop. I don't know what to say, I manage. Say yes, Declan says, smiling. Yes, I say immediately. Yes, absolutely, thank you, yes. He stands up and extends his hand, and I shake it, and this time my palm isn't sweaty. It's just present. Welcome to Morrison & Associates, he says. I'm still crying, and I laugh through the tears, and Declan hands me a tissue from a box that appeared from nowhere. Can I ask you something? I say, wiping my eyes. Anything. Why did you let me go through the whole interview? If you knew I wasn't qualified, why didn't you just stop me? Declan sits back down, gesturing for me to do the same. Because I wanted to see how far you could go, he says. How you'd handle increasingly difficult questions, whether you'd panic or adapt. And you adapted. Every single time I threw something at you, you found a way through it. You didn't always get it right. Your explanation of Porter's 5 forces was pretty rough, but you got the spirit of it. You understood the principles even if you didn't know the terminology. I felt like I was drowning, I admit. But you didn't drown, he points out. You kept swimming. That's what this job is. Constant problem solving, thinking on your feet, finding solutions when you don't have all the information. You just did that for an hour straight. I thought I was failing. You thought you were failing because you're measuring yourself against some imaginary standard of perfection, Declan says. But the truth is, most of our senior strategists couldn't have handled that interview the way you did. They would have tried to fake expertise. You faked expertise too, but you did it by actually thinking through the problems, not just by memorizing the right buzzwords. I shake my head in disbelief. I still can't believe you're offering me this job. I can't believe it took you this long to confess, Declan says with a laugh. I kept waiting for you to crack. You were so nervous in the beginning. I thought for sure you'd admit it within the first 10 minutes. What would you have done if I hadn't confessed? He considers this. I would have offered you the job anyway, but I'm glad you told me. It confirms what I already suspected, that you're someone who values honesty over self-preservation. That's rare. There's a knock on the glass door and a woman pokes her head in. Sorry to interrupt, she says. Declan, your 3 o'clock is here. Give me 5 minutes, Declan says, and she nods and disappears. He turns back to me. I need to send you some paperwork. Offer letter, benefits information, start date options. How does 2 weeks from now sound? That gives you time to wrap up your current situation and prepare. 2 weeks is perfect, I say. You'll start with onboarding. Meet the team, learn our systems, get up to speed on our current clients. Then you'll shadow one of our senior strategists for a month before you start taking on your own projects. He pauses. It's going to be a lot. Are you ready for that? I have no idea, I say honestly, but I want to be. That's good enough, Declan says, standing up. Wanting to be ready is the first step to actually being ready. We walk to the door together. Can I ask you one more thing? I say. Sure. That campaign you mentioned, the wellness client who wanted accessible positioning, did you ever get to execute it? We did, Declan says. It launched last month. It's performing really well. Turns out there's a huge market for wellness that doesn't require a trust fund. I smile. That's awesome. You'll actually be working on the next phase of it, he mentions casually, if that's something you're interested in. Are you kidding? That sounds amazing. We're at the elevator now, and Declan presses the button for me. I'm really glad you applied at 2 in the morning, he says. Me too, I say, even though it was probably the most impulsive, reckless thing I've ever done. Sometimes the best things come from impulsive, reckless decisions, Declan says. The elevator dings, and the doors open. Welcome to the team. I think you're going to surprise yourself. I step into the elevator and turn around. Thank you, I say, for taking a chance on me. I'm not going to let you down. I know you won't, Declan says, and the doors close. I lean against the wall, my legs suddenly weak, and I realize I'm smiling. I just got a job I wasn't qualified for. I confessed to lying through the entire interview, and they hired me anyway. The elevator descends, and I pull out my phone to text Tessa. Me, you're not going to believe what just happened. The doors open to the lobby, and I walk out into the afternoon sunlight, and everything feels different. Everything feels possible. I think about Declan's question. What would worry you most about taking this job? The truth is, everything about this worries me. I'm going to be learning on the fly, making mistakes, asking stupid questions, feeling like an imposter probably every single day. But I'm also going to be doing work that challenges me, that matters, that pushes me to become someone I didn't know I could be. And maybe that's worth the fear. Maybe that's worth the risk. I'm walking to the subway when my phone buzzes with an email. It's from Declan. Subject line, welcome aboard. I open it. Attached is your official offer letter. Read through it, sign it, send it back when you're ready. Also attached, some reading materials to get you started. Don't stress about understanding everything. You have time to learn. One more thing. You asked me earlier why I let you go through the whole interview. The real answer? I wanted you to see what you're capable of. You walked into that room convinced you didn't belong there. You walked out having proven, to both of us, that you absolutely do. See you in 2 weeks. Declan. I'm crying again, standing on the sidewalk like a complete mess, and I don't even care. A woman walking past gives me a concerned look, and I give her a watery thumbs up. I'm okay. More than okay. I'm terrified and excited and overwhelmed and so incredibly grateful. I pull up Tessa's contact and call her instead of texting. She answers answers on the first ring. Well, I got the job, I say. She screams so loudly I have to hold the phone away from my ear. Are you kidding me? How? What happened? Tell me everything right now. So I do. I tell her about the lobby, about Declan, about improvising my way through frameworks I'd never heard of, about the moment I decided to confess, about his response. Wait, Tessa says. He knew? The whole time? The whole time. And he still interviewed you? He wanted to see how I'd handle it. That's insane. That's kind of brilliant. I know. So what now? Now I have 2 weeks to panic and prepare, I say. And then I start a job I'm completely unqualified for, and I learn everything from scratch. And I probably cry in the bathroom a lot. You're going to be amazing, Tessa says fiercely. You just talked your way through an hour-long interview about a field you know nothing about. If you can do that, you can do anything. I'm terrified. Good. That means you care. She pauses. I'm proud of you. You know that, right? My throat gets tight again. Thanks, Tess. Come home. We're celebrating. I'm buying the expensive wine. I hang up and start walking again, and I'm smiling so wide my face hurts. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in my apartment eating ice cream, convinced my life was falling apart. Now I have a job at the most prestigious marketing firm in the city. I have a boss who believes in me even though I showed up completely unprepared. I have a chance to become someone I never thought I could be. And it all started with one impulsive decision at 2 a.m. I think about what Declan said about Morrison, about holding two truths at once. What is and what could be. Right now, I'm someone who doesn't know what they're doing. But I could be someone who does. I could be someone who creates campaigns that matter, someone who understands strategy and data and human behavior, someone who deserves to be in that glass-walled conference room. I don't have to be that person yet. I just have to be willing to become them. And I am. I'm willing to show up, to learn, to fail, to try again, to ask questions, to be honest about what I don't know. I'm willing to be exactly what Declan saw in me. Someone who's present, engaged, and real. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Unknown. This is Declan. Got your number from your application. Forgot to mention, the team does coffee every Monday morning. It's optional, but highly recommended. Fair warning. Our senior strategist, Roman, makes terrible jokes. Our creative director, Scarlett, will immediately try to recruit you for her book club. And our analyst, Nash, will probably challenge you to a debate about literally anything. They're the best team I've ever worked with. Can't wait for you to meet them. I save his number and text back. Me. I like terrible jokes, I love books, and I'm very good at debates about nothing. This is going to be fun. Declan. That's the spirit. I'm still smiling when I get on the subway. Still smiling when I get home and Tessa attacks me with a hug. Still smiling when we open the expensive wine and toast to impulsive decisions and unexpected chances and jobs we're not qualified for, but somehow got anyway. To faking it till you make it, Tessa says, raising her glass. To not having to fake it anymore, I counter. We drink and it tastes like possibility. Like the beginning of something I can't quite imagine yet, but can't wait to discover. 2 weeks from now, I'll walk into that building again. But this time, I won't be a fraud. I'll be an employee, a student, a strategist in training. Someone who admitted they didn't know everything and was offered a chance anyway. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Maybe the bravest thing you can do isn't pretending to have it all figured out. Maybe it's showing up and admitting you don't. Maybe it's being honest about your limitations and then working to exceed them. Maybe it's taking the leap even when you're terrified of falling. I think about that moment in the conference room when I almost walked out, when I was so convinced I didn't belong that I nearly gave up. And then I think about what happened instead. I stayed, I tried, I confessed. And I got hired anyway. Not in spite of my honesty, but because of it. That's the part I keep coming back to. The part that makes me think maybe I can actually do this. Declan didn't hire me because I faked my way through the interview. He hired me because I told the truth. And if I can remember that, if I can keep being honest about what I don't know, keep asking questions, keep learning, keep showing up as exactly who I am, then maybe I really will become the person he already sees in me. Maybe I already am. Tessa refills our glasses, and we talk for hours about everything and nothing, about how weird life is, how one random decision at 2 a.m. can change everything, how sometimes the things that terrify us most are exactly the things we need to do. Eventually, she goes to bed, and I'm left alone with my thoughts and my laptop. I open the reading materials Declan sent, articles about brand strategy, consumer psychology, market positioning. I start reading, and I don't understand half of it, but I keep going, because this is my job now. Learning is my job. Growing is my job. Becoming someone who deserves this opportunity is my job, and I'm ready to do the work. I read until my eyes blur, until the words stop making sense, until I have to close my laptop and accept that I can't learn everything in one night, but I can learn something. And tomorrow I'll learn something else. And the day after that, and the day after that, until slowly, incrementally, imperfectly, I become the strategist I told Declan I could be. I'm falling asleep when I remember something. The very first question Declan asked me, tell me about yourself. And I'd given him some polished, semi-fictional version of who I thought he wanted me to be. But if he asked me that question now, I'd answer differently. I'd tell him I'm someone who applied to a job they weren't qualified for because they were desperate for change. Someone who panicked through an entire interview, making up answers and praying they sounded legitimate. Someone who ultimately couldn't live with the lie and confessed everything. Someone who got hired not despite their honesty, but because of it. I'm someone who's terrified and excited and completely out of their depth. Someone who's willing to fail in pursuit of something that matters. Someone who's ready to learn, to grow, to become whoever they need to be. That's who I am. And maybe that's exactly who I need to be. I fall asleep smiling, dreaming of glass-walled conference rooms and impossible interviews and second chances I never saw coming. In 2 weeks, I'll walk into Morrison & Associates as an employee. But tonight, I'm just someone who took a chance. And it paid off in ways I never could have imagined.